Alright, what's going on, guys? So we just got our first look at Elden Ring Nightreign with the world premiere gameplay trailer at the Game Awards. And it looks absolutely crazy, like nothing we've ever seen before from Fromsoftware. And I just dropped a full trailer breakdown, so if you have not seen that yet, definitely check out that video, because since that dropped, there have been a ton of new gameplay details, story details, and background about exactly what this game is, as well as testimonials from people that actually got to play it. So we have a metric ton to get through today. But before we dive in fully, they just announced that a network test will be being held early for Elden Ring Nightreign, where you can play the game yourself. This will take place sometime in February, with registration opening on January 10th. So set some reminders on your phone, do not forget about this, you will absolutely want to get your chance to play this game early. But as we get into all this today, y'all do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be keeping you up to date on absolutely everything about Elden Ring Nightreign, and you're not going to want to miss a video. So let's get started. Now, one thing to understand about Elden Ring Nightreign that wasn't made clear yet was that this game is not directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki. The director of Elden Ring Nightreign is Junya Ishizaki, and they had this to say about stepping up as director for the first time at Fromsoftware. As a developer, I had many ideas for what could potentially be new games during the development of the past titles I've worked on, including Elden Ring. This time, I stepped up as a new director. I was given the opportunity to direct this idea for Nightreign. We've always been seen as a company that makes these Souls-likes or this kind of traditional formula of Souls-like games, and so I saw this as an opportunity to do something different, to challenge both myself and the company to build something new while still using what we've cultivated with our previous titles. Also, personally, I enjoyed these co-op multiplayer experiences, and I wanted to make something that was very much focused on that with Nightreign. And that's what we've been hearing from Miyazaki for a while now about what the future of Fromsoftware was going to be. These smaller scale projects by directors that are not him, focusing on other genres so that we can get a lot more variety out of the games that come out of Fromsoftware. And I'm all for it, man. This sounds like a blast. He then goes on to state that the only involvement Miyazaki had was giving the idea the green light and the very initial concept of what it was going to be, but then full reign was given to Ishizaki. We then get a bit of story details, and after that trailer, we're gonna need them. We need an explanation for what we saw. IGN asked if the lore was going to tie into Elden Ring or if it was completely standalone or an alternate universe. And the answer was, we'd like fans to think of Nightreign as an Elden Ring spin-off first and foremost. The story is completely separate and parallel to the world of Elden Rings. If you had to tie it in some way, we had the events of the Shattering in the original game. After the events of the Shattering, this is a completely separate branch of the Elden Ring story. We understand that there's a great deal of emotional attachment to the story of Elden Ring that a lot of fans have, so we didn't want to encroach on that too much. We wanted it to coexist with the existing story and for players both familiar and new to enjoy both these stories separately, and George R.R. Martin has no involvement. So if I'm reading that correctly, it kind of sounds like an alternate timeline. While not directly canon to the main game, there are going to be overlaps in the lore, because we do know that at least some of the demigods are alive in this game, like Morgott for example. But all I'm saying is I want Dark Souls 3 to be canon in the Elden Ring world. Just let that happen, please. But he does go into detail a bit about that overlap, saying yes, the enemies during the day are basically the enemies from Elden Ring. The bosses from Elden Ring also appear, but not all of them. In particular, the demigods are strongly connected to the story of Elden Ring, so I'll keep it a secret from here on out. That doesn't mean they won't appear at all. Also, enemies from the Dark Souls series will appear, but only a little. In terms of the setting, they are drawn from another world due to the influence of the King of Night, the original villain. In Elden Ring Nightreign, we value the sense of chaos that various things attack at night. In that sense, I thought it would be interesting to have enemies from another world appear, so I got permission from Miyazaki and Tanimura, the director of Dark Souls 2, and decided to have them appear. Okay, so it's pretty obvious that this isn't intended to be canon, but we're chalking it up to things from another world are crossing over. Kind of a cop-out, but for gameplay's sake, we can accept it. And we have a ton of gameplay details to talk about, so let's get into that. Let me break this down pretty simply so you can get the picture. Elden Ring Nightreign is a 3-player co-op survival game, although it can be played solo, where you choose a hero, load into a selected area that will then be randomly generated, where you have to survive for 3 days. And you have a Fortnite-style storm closing in during that time, while you explore, find loot, level up, and if you survive for 3 days, you get to fight the final boss at the end. It kind of reminds me of extraction shooters without the battle royale aspect, which is something that Miyazaki said they were looking at for inspiration, so I guess he wasn't lying. But a few game journal outlets got the chance to go to Tokyo and get hands-on with the game, and they have a lot to share. So here's how the game plays out. In between sessions, you return to the Roundtable Hold, where you can practice your attack combos in the training yard, study up on enemy strategies and character lore in the Codex, or spend the currency you earn earn from each run, known as Mert, to buy character emotes and customizable skins from the merchant. It's in the roundtable hold that you can also configure each character's relics. These are permanent attribute buffs that are unlocked after each session, and you can slot 3 of them into each character to further tailor them to your playstyle. One relic might boost a character's maximum HP and allow them to deal extra damage with throwing knives, for example, while another might substantially boost attacks from heavy thrusting swords, which is handy if you favor the Godskin Stitcher or the Bloody Hellas. Long-term FromSoftware fans will recognize these relics as being reminiscent of Bloodborne's blood gems. Okay, so this is much more gamified than a traditional FromSoftware game. So it does sound almost exactly like a live service extraction, but they did say this is not live service at all. Everything will be unlockable in-game, so don't worry about that. But to start a session, you will select the boss you want to beat at the end. That will then put you into a randomly generated part of the map where you will have the day to explore, find loot, level up, and once that day is over, you will have to fight a randomized boss. The night will be much harsher during the day and impose penalties on the player, such as needing to be revived upon death instead of immediately respawning like you would during the day. Each day lasts about 15 minutes, and in order to find loot, you'll defeat powerful enemies or explore to find chests. They compared the looting system specifically to Destiny, but you won't have to worry about requirements for weapons or equip load, and they also said the level up system is very streamlined. Man, this does sound a lot like original Fortnite. Let me pull a gold Zweihander out of a chest real quick, crank some 90s on Margit, and then hit him with a Renegade or something. I'm here for it. But as the days progress, the enemies get harder, more bosses appear, but you also get more XP and loot. And again, if you've played extraction games, you can kind of see how this goes. The loop seems to be the same, but it appears that instead of extracting, your actual goal is to defeat that final boss. But here's my one main concern about these types of games. A lot of times they run into the problem of not really having an end game. You're always preparing for the next run, but there's nothing really to do outside of that loop. So I hope this doesn't run into that same issue, but maybe with the network test we'll be able to see what the end game kind of looks like. We get a few details on the Spirit Hawk too. Instead of being like Torrent that you can take anywhere, you'll have to find these spectral trees, and then the Hawk will launch you in one direction across a vast distance. They said they didn't want players to spam it during boss fights or it be some kind of cop-out way out of combat. Also, I'm not even kidding, they said you fly in on the Hawk just like the battle bus. That's crazy, man. We'll dive more into the characters in another video, but the combat also is reminiscent of things like Destiny, to where each character has an ult that's on a cooldown timer and special select abilities that can trigger combos or powerful attacks. But I think you guys are starting to get the picture here. If you've played any of these other games, then you understand how this all works. This is not the same Elden Ring, so just be prepared for that. So those are a lot of the new details about Elden Ring Nightreign. By now you probably have a full picture of what we're getting into with this game. I did leave out a lot of the fine details for time's sake, but again, if you've played almost any other game that came out in the past 5 years or so, you'll know exactly how it all works. We'll probably dive big into all the different characters in the next video, so be on the lookout for that. But you guys let me know, how does Elden Ring Nightreign sound to you? Is it too much of a deviation from FromSoftware's standard formula, or are you excited to try something different? Either way though, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and definitely subscribe. We got a lot more on the way. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.